right, guys. So for warm-up today, we did number 2 on yesterday's yellow worksheet. And let's talk about what was needed and what was extra here. All right, when I worked this problem, the first thing I did was find the slopes. And I have slopes of positive 5 and slopes of negative 1/5. And that really is enough. That is all I need. Because I can state that I have 2 pair of parallel lines, because I have 2 slopes that are the same, and that I have right angles. How do I know I have right angles? Because the slopes of the intersecting lines are opposite reciprocals. So just the slopes is enough for me. Now, if you found the distances, you see that opposite sides are also congruent. So you could have done it that way. So if you do the 2 things about the congruent sides and then the right angles, or the parallel sides and the right angles, you're good. And make sure we can write it out in words. Okay, up under that, where you see up under number 3, 4th period, somebody asked me about this, and this, I think you covered this last year, but in case you didn't, I just want to go back over it again. When you did all that stuff with parallel lines cut by transversal, remember that unit when you talked about, okay, I think it's in there, but if it's not, let's go over it right now. If we have 2 lines that are both perpendicular to another line, then those 2 lines are parallel. Does that make sense? And I drew a picture so you can see that the blue line and the green line are both perpendicular to the red line. And it's pretty obvious that blue and green are parallel. All right, any questions about that? Okay, now, after looking back at the standard for this missing point thing, I don't think we have to justify it the way we do. Is it a parallelogram? Is it a rhombus? Is it a kite? I'm not going to worry so much about justification for this one. And let's focus on, can you find the missing point from what you know must be true? You're not going to have to tell me why you decided that was the point this time. Okay, so for number 1, if we have a trapezoid, then that side AC has to be parallel to the side EY. Does that make sense to everyone? So what I did was I found the slope of AC, which is positive 1, and I drew in a dashed line right there through E. And I knew that Y had to be somewhere on that line. And then to make an isosceles, which is a special type trapezoid that has congruent legs, I had to find the distance of this one. It was over 1 down 4. So it would be the square root of 17. 1 squared plus 4 squared is square root of 17. So if I do these same moves over here, except I make it down 1 and over 4, do you see I found the other point? Now, a few of you noticed the other day that the slopes of the legs, the congruent legs on the trapezoid, isosceles trapezoid, are opposite reciprocals. And that would have been helpful. You could have applied that here.
Wait, like AC and AY or... Oh, no, you meant...
The slopes are opposite reciprocals. Yes.
Well,
Yes, Michael.
Is it fine that I saw that and did the slope for both the parallel line and the other side, and I just where they intersect at the point?
Okay.
And is that justified?
We're not going to worry about justifying these. Can you find it from what you know must be true? And so since you know that must be true, you can find it. All right. Let's take a look at number 3. Now, I've got to change these directions because if I ask you to find all possible points, there are an infinite number of points. And so I'm going to change it to 2, and we'll just go with any of these today. All right. So what do we know about a kite? Hopefully, we know that consecutive sides are congruent. We have 2 pairs of consecutive sides that are congruent. So this has to be congruent to this, and these other 2 sides have to be congruent. And also, from our little check sheet, we should have been able to see that the diagonals must be perpendicular. And that's what I had to go with here, because I'm missing this other side. So I went with, okay, the slope of this one is 1/3. So the other diagonal, in order to be perpendicular to that, it would have to be -3. So it went down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1, down 3 over 1. Well, any of those points I just made that are on the other side of this diagonal could be a possible fourth point. Okay? And actually, any point on the dashed line is a possible fourth point. Any of those. It doesn't look like it?
That's what I was guessing instead of
Okay.
doing math.
Now, if we want to go with one that can only be classified as a kite and not something more specific, the 0, 2 will actually give us a rhombus. But this particular rhombus is a kite. But if we're just going with just defined as a kite, then we could go with the -1, 5, the 1, -1, the 2, -4. Does that make sense about number 3? Okay, if you didn't have to explain it, could you find it by what you already know? Okay, Connor.
That was on a test, and you put 0, 2.
I would not count it wrong. All right, then the next one was find a rectangle. So what I did was find this slope and drew in a perpendicular. I found this slope and drew in a perpendicular, and where they intersected was that fourth point. Are we good? Oh, yes.
Be on the test.
Not on the missing point ones. Ones that are like on the yellow worksheet where you have to prove what type of quadrilateral it is. Yes, justify them, but not on the missing point. Okay. Now, these, I didn't give you a graph, but some of you pulled out your graph paper and sketched it because it made it a lot easier to understand. So on a lot of these, all we have to do is count slope between 2 points and then do it backwards to get to the missing one. Is that what most of you did? Or not? Did we get 5 and 6?
I got
6.
We got 6, so we don't have 5.
I got 5.
Because those
And
were
I got
switched, so I just switched those.
I did not attempt 7.
Really?
Honestly, I got that. It could be any of these parallelograms.
Okay.
I only got 1 answer.
That's weird. Y'all see how I'm trying to drop it right there?
That's funky.
Doesn't want to.
Funky, bro.
Let's start it.
Yeah.
There. Okay, so we'll do 5 real quick. All right, and our endpoints, can y'all read those to me because I can't see them? 5, 2?
5, 2.
1, 9 won't fit on my graph.
I'm sorry.
Okay, 1, 9, and -3, 2. Okay, and what do we want on this one? A rhombus? Okay, so we know that the diagonals are going to, of the rhombus are going to bisect each other. So I know if this one is from 2 to 9 is 7, then I would come 7 this way on the other side, right? So if it's bisected, if this distance is 7, then this distance better be 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's my other point. 1, -5. Because on a rhombus, the diagonals bisect each other. Okay? Does that help with number 5? All right. So number 7, I've got the 3 points that you're given on here. Okay, this is how I would do it. So from this point to this point, if I go down 1, I can go right 1, 2, 3. So could I go down 1 and right 1, 2, 3? Does that make a parallelogram? Yes, that is the 4, -5. Okay, to go from this one to this one, do I go up 1 and right 3?
I'd say so.
So from here, I could go up 1 and right 1, 2, 3.
That's the answer.
Is that a parallelogram. Okay, that gives us this one. Okay, from here to here, I go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. So I could go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1 and get the point.
That's a parallel.
0, 7. Yeah. It's a very skinny, slanted one. But yes, it is. I'm not going to draw it in well, but I'll try for you. Okay? Yes, I'll.
On the test, are you able to find multiple points or just destroyed?
If I give you one like this, where the points are not labeled, you can find multiple points. So there might be one where I ask you to find 2. But most of them just 1 because I name them usually. All right. Any other questions about this? Okay. Today what we're going to do is an activity where you work in groups of 2 or 3. Okay? And what we're going to do is basically a task over everything we've studied on this unit except for the missing point. There's not a missing point on there.
Good.
Okay? So you can choose your groups of 2 or 3, and then I'll come by in just a moment. If there's anyone in here that would rather work by themselves, I'm okay with that, but you certainly don't have to. And we're going to turn this in at the end of class. Now your homework tonight is on the yellow sheet. We've now done 1 and 2. I want you to do 3, 4, and 5. Okay?
Okay, so I